Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into some really fascinating sources, laying out Canada's ambitious future. We're looking at a whole series of transformative national projects.
That's right.
Our mission really is to unpack the key insights, understand how Canada's charting its course for, the next few decades.
Hmm.
And honestly, the scale and just the sheer variety of these plans might genuinely surprise you.
It's true. And what's really striking, I think, is that these aren't just um, separate big projects dotted around.
Right.
They really reflect a deliberate, kind of bold pivot towards massive, large-scale investment. We're talking energy, defense, infrastructure, even, cutting-edge tech.
The whole strategy.
Exactly. It feels like a comprehensive national strategy,
Yeah.
really aimed at redefining Canada's place in the world.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting with energy, we're definitely seeing a big push for diversification, boosting exports. What's the main thing happening there?
Well, a huge focus is on LNG, liquefied natural gas, and critically, the infrastructure to export it. The big one is the $40 billion LNG Canada Kitimat export terminal. It actually just shipped its first cargo.
Already. Wow.
Yeah, from the Pacific coast. And this isn't just about selling gas, it's strategic. It's about positioning Canada as like a reliable global supplier when things are pretty volatile out there.
Makes sense. Hedging their bets a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hedging against shifts in, say, North American demand, maybe influencing global prices. Plus, there are two more LNG facilities coming, Cedar and Woodfibre LNG.
More capacity then.
Right. And don't forget, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is now sending oil to the Pacific, too.
Yeah.
It's all geared towards reducing that heavy reliance on the U.S. market and, well, broadening their reach globally.
Okay, that scale is definitely impressive internationally. So how does that connect back home? You mentioned infrastructure, domestic unity. How are they tackling internal stuff, breaking down barriers?
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle
Okay.
because it raises questions about, internal cohesion, making the most of what they have within Canada.
Mm.
So we're seeing things like Bill C-5. That's federal legislation, basically designed to fast-track approvals for major projects, cut through some of the red tape.
Speed things up.
Right. And alongside that, there are these One Canadian Economy reforms. The goal there is to tackle those interprovincial trade barriers that everyone talks about.
Which could be huge for GDP, right?
Potentially, yeah. Big boost for GDP, easier movement of goods, people. But maybe the most wildly ambitious piece is the Canadian Northern Corridor.
Okay, I've heard about this. What's the latest?
Well, the projections are just staggering. We're talking maybe $100 to $150 billion for a 7,000 to 10,000 kilometer multimodal corridor.
Multimodal. So roads, rail.
Roads, rails, pipelines, power lines, basically a massive infrastructure spine across Canada's mid-north. It would fundamentally change internal trade and resource access.
Wow. Okay. And wasn't there a high-speed rail project, too?
Yes. The Alto high-speed rail linking Toronto and Quebec City. It's got, I think, $3.9 billion in federal funding behind it.
And the goal?
Have the travel time, basically. Plus, they estimate something like 51,000 jobs created. So yeah, connectivity and efficiency on a really grand scale.
It really sounds like they're building for the long haul internally. Does that vision extend outwards, too? Like defense, strategic sovereignty? What's happening with the military?
Oh, absolutely. There's a major push on military modernization. Take the Navy's River-class destroyers program.
Replacing the Halifax class.
Exactly. With up to 15 new warships. And the estimated cost is huge, around $60 to $80 billion.
60 to 80 billion.
Yeah. I mean, just to give you a sense, that's roughly Canada's entire annual defense budget, maybe for several years running. It signals a massive long-term commitment to naval power.
Okay. What else?
Well, in the air, they're getting 88 F-35 fighter jets. That's a significant upgrade for the Air Force.
Right.
And crucially, there's a $15 billion investment in NORAD infrastructure. That's the Joint U.S.-Canada Command.
For northern defense.
Specifically for northern defense, yeah. Which is critical, for dealing with modern threats and also asserting sovereignty up in the Arctic.
So we've hit energy, domestic infrastructure, defense. What about the future economy? Tech leadership, innovation. Where does that fit in?
That's definitely another key pillar. Canada's making a strong push into advanced clean energy and biotech.
Like batteries.
Exactly. You've got the $7 billion Northvolt plant in Quebec for EV electric vehicle batteries and clean tech manufacturing. That, plus related factories for components like cathode materials, aims to make Canada a real player in that global green supply chain.
Okay. and other clean tech.
Yeah, out west, there's about $49 million going into hydrogen liquefaction and R&D in BC and Alberta. That's specifically looking at clean fuel for trucks, decarbonizing transport.
Interesting. And biotech.
Right. A $2.3 billion biomanufacturing and life sciences strategy. This includes big investments in places like Omnia Bio and stem cell laboratories. It's about boosting their ability to develop and make vaccines, advanced cell and gene therapies.
Which feels pretty vital these days.
Absolutely. For national health security, but also for future medical innovations, a big piece of that future economy puzzle.
Wow. Okay. So taking it all together, energy, infrastructure, defense, biotech, it really does feel like a bold pivot, like you said. Setting the stage for the next few decades in Canada, it's incredibly comprehensive.
It really is. And it raises this important question for all of us, maybe, to think about. How might all these diverse, frankly, massive investments fundamentally reshape Canada's identity
Hmm.
and its role on the global stage, balancing that traditional strength and resources with this really strong pivot towards future technologies?
That's a great point. Balancing the old and the new identity.
Exactly. It's definitely a national strategy to watch unfold, as Canada tries to carve out its place in the 21st century.